Okay, guys, so we will start with the session. So here in this session, what we will be doing is we will be discussing the chapter 2. Okay, so I'll take up the questions from chapter 2, few questions we can discuss, and then we will discuss the pattern and the style in which you will be answering that question. And then tomorrow I'll share with you some of the questions and you will be answering that. Okay, guys, so this is the idea. So let's start with this particular question. Rather than you focusing on that question as such, we will consider this topic, positivism and its critique. This is what actually given in your syllabus, right? Now, what are the possible questions from here? They will ask you to critically evaluate this positivism, right? As it is given directly in the syllabus, you have positivism and then critique of positivism as well. So direct question is critically evaluate this approach, positivism, or critically evaluate the contribution of positivism in the development of sociology or as a methodology in sociology. All these can be, this is a first possible question. Or discuss the basic tenets of positivism. That is going to be a very simple question. You just need to focus on the basic aspects of positivism, right? Or simply they will ask you positivism and its critique. So there is no possibility that they will ask you any twisted question here. No matter what they're asking, guys, you will always have to follow this approach. First, you will briefly write an introduction, which will also incorporate the emergence of sociology. So what you guys are going to tell in your first liners, just focus on this. So you will tell that sociology emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. So you will be talking about that initial situation. You're talking about modernity. You're talking about medieval Europe and the emergence of sociology. That is what is going to be your first line. Okay, so guys, here I am telling you the way I am going to present the answer. Now from there you can take whatever good things are there, and then you can also add upon to that a lot of things you have studied from your teachers. You need to add that. So here I'm just guiding you, and guys, let me tell you again, here I'm not going to teach you what is positivism and all these topics. I'm just guiding you what all things need to be captured in your particular answer. When you're attempting this question, what should come? If you have studied that, it will be perfectly fine. If not, I have given that PDF. Everything is there. For example, I may talk about structuralism. I may talk about reflexive sociology. I may talk about phenomenology. I may talk about ethnomethodology. All these I will be using when I'm writing the criticism. So if you have the knowledge about that, it is well and good. If not, you have to read the PDF. Everything is given to you. There is nothing else which is required for you. Okay, I'm expecting that you have studied from the respective teachers or the notes or the classes that you have attended. Okay, guys. So introduction, you will go like that, talk about the emergence. And since its emergence, what the initial sociologists did. In fact, if you see, initial sociologists were positivist because they wanted to make sociology similar to natural science because of this obsession towards science, right? And science is considered as more legitimate and all those situations, right? Intellectual development. Because of all these reasons, science was getting dominance at that point of time. So initial sociologists wanted to make it similar to natural science. So one of the approach which is followed in natural science, or one of the approach that you are now going to follow in sociology, is going to be positivism, which is similar to the approach which is followed in natural sciences. So why we have decided to follow this approach, or why the initial sociologist is following this approach, it is because of that obsession to science, or it is because of that concern for objectivity, or it is because of that tendency of the initial sociologists that they wanted to make it similar to natural sciences. So that is the context. So what you guys are doing is, in the 1 or 2 lines, guys, I'll be talking from the perspective of 150 and 250 word answer. The one which is asked in this question, critically evaluate, this is going to be 250. It can be simply 150 word positivism and its critique also. The structure will more or less will remain the same. You need to adjust based on the demand of the question, based on the space available to you, based on the time that you can spend. Okay, so ultimately you should be keeping this in mind, that you just need 150 or 250 words in that particular answer. But all these things need to be incorporated. They may not ask you, even suppose the question is basically explaining about the tenets of positivism. Suppose that is a question. Still, guys, you need to talk about criticism. So ultimately, we will be discussing about all these keywords, discuss, examine, critically analyze, and all these things. But towards the end, you will come to know that all these are one and the same. Even if it is simply a discuss or evaluate, or if it is critically analyzed, you will be talking about everything related to that topic, including criticism. It is not only in critical analysis you will be writing the criticism. Even in a question where they're just asking you discuss, there also you will be talking about criticism. Even the question is about basic tenets of positivism. You cannot conclude the answer without writing one or two limitations. So, in my opinion, there are people who will tell you like this is the structure, this is that structure, but ultimately, if you need to score good in this paper, all are almost same. Especially what the differentiation you can make, guys, especially in questions like 10 marker and 20 marker, you cannot make differentiation between these keywords, right? Though the keywords are there, I'll explain all these keywords and how to approach all these keywords, but that time it is not possible for you to run behind the keywords. You should be focusing on this. The question is about basic tenets of positivism. I know what to write: introduction and then positivism and then limitation, even if it is 10 marker. No matter whether they have asked about limitation, no matter whether they have asked about critically analyze or criticism, you should be writing about it. So discuss question automatically turned out to be a critically analyzed question itself when you're answering. That is the approach. That is actually what you need. There is no need to stick to this is discuss and I will be just discussing the basic tenets. You should never do that. You should be writing all these things. The positivism. So let me complete it and then we will go back to that. So what I want to tell you is you guys don't want to worry about these words and don't run behind these words in the question. Later, once you get that maturity, when you start writing the answer, guys, people who have written the mains 2-3 times, they will tell you that these are almost one and the same at the end of the day, because the way you're going to approach is almost the same, though we can differentiate the meaning and everything. But when you are putting it into paper, these are almost one and the same. And if you need to get marks, you need to cover each and every dimension, no matter what keyword they're asking, whether it is discuss, examine, critically analyze. This is my point, guys. Even if the question is about discuss, when you write your answer towards the end, you cannot actually differentiate whether you have written a discuss question or critically analyzed question. Because even in a general discussion, can you write a general discussion without talking about the limitation? No, right? You can simply discuss about that basic tenets, but that's not complete in itself. You are obliged to talk about the limitation. So when you're writing the limitation, that is actually a critically analyze. Similarly, if the question is about examine, when you're examining something, for example, positivism, as a methodology you're going to examine, can you do that without talking about the positives and negatives? No, you cannot examine anything just with one dimension. So this is what people misconceived or misunderstood, that all these are different and we need to have a different structure. That's not the case. When you start writing, you will come to know almost all these will be merged into one. That is the level of maturity you need to have. It is, if you start thinking that all these are different, then that is that immature approach. See, examine itself. Without examining the positives and negatives, you cannot conclude anything. So when you're talking about positives and negatives, it is ultimately critically analyzed only. Okay, guys. So this is how you will be attempting this. Then I'm going to tell what is positivism. How is it connected to science, right? Positivism focusing on studying external reality. So you will be talking about that. You will be studying external reality, and then you can talk about example from Comte or Spencer, right? Or Durkheim social facts. You can explain. Or Comte is saying you sociologists should not concerned about internal reality. You should be only concerned about external reality, right? And they will be focusing on macro. Okay, and they will be focusing on scientific methods. Why scientific methods? To ensure objectivity, so that there will not be any bias. Personal bias can be resolved from the study. And guys, with respect to this, I'll be discussing the criticism. We will discuss reflexive sociology by Alvin Goldner. He is making it very clear that the bias can be there. The person who's conducting the study, the knower and knowee, both need to be there, right? So without personal biases, you cannot actually conduct investigation. That is what reflexive sociology. I have given the answer. Similarly, structuralist, they also you can write here. Andoni Giddens you can write here. That as an example again for this objectivity factor. Or Weber, Mead, Alfred Schutz, Peter Berger, Thomas Luckmann, Harold Garfinkel, phenomenology, ethnomethodology, interpreter sociology, interactionist approach. All these you can write as a criticism. So I'm not, thinking that you will be facing problem with the content. That's why I'm not talking about the content. I'm just telling you what you need to be writing and how you're going to be proceeding. Okay, guys. So you will be talking about what is positivism. Now, what you're going to do is you will be talking about how it contributed in the development of sociology in the beginning. For example, you can talk about Durkheim studies, how Durkheim used statistical techniques, how Durkheim used quantitative methods in his theory of suicide, then how his theory of social facts, right? How he's considering social facts as things. That is a clear-cut positivist approach, right? To ensure objectivity. How we have given different scientific methods, right? You can talk about multivariate analysis, indirect experiment, all those. If you have time and space, again, that's what I'm telling you, 150 word you will not be able to write it. 250 words you can be you can include all these things. Okay, guys. So how positivism contributed. So here is where I will be following this approach, guys. CCR. This question is critically analyzed, so I'll follow this approach: contribution, then criticism, then I'll conclude with relevance. So that is what CCR approach. Just remember this. So I will be talking about the contribution, and then what I'll be doing, I will be talking about criticism. So you can write n number of criticism directly from here. Rather than doing that, you can just remember things you have studied in the other topics. So even if the question is about positivism, now remember, guys, this is an opportunity that you're getting to also talk about non-positivism, where you can reflect your knowledge in non-positivism to the examiner. So you can talk about Weber, right? I'm just mentioning that point only. I'm expecting that you know this. This is not a training session, okay? So Weber. So Weber, that's why purposely I have taken this batch only, that not my students. Few of you are my students, but otherwise this is mostly not my students, because I'm not interested in talking about all those things that we will not be able to complete in 21 days, because all these topics are one day, one sessions. Okay, guys. So Weber, you will be talking about interpretive approach. Mead. So some of you are asking me how many thinkers you need to incorporate. Guys, it's all about the knowledge you have. It's all about the time and space that you're getting. Now here you can fill your answer with knowledge, thinkers, right? It is not that you simply answering with the thinkers. You are saying that, for example, this is studying external reality. So then what you can say, they are having a partial understanding of society, since they are including the internal aspects. For example, that is the way you need to write. You should never write directly Weber. You got my point? So you take one of the point of positivism. No, don't write heading criticism. There is no problem in writing criticism heading. I have given you the notes in that separately. Everything I've given, what you need to write as positivism, the elements of positivism heading is there, criticism's heading is there. Okay, but don't do that in your answer. That doesn't show a better approach, right? You keep on writing in paragraph, that order, that flow, that structure should be maintained, because once you are reading it, that person will be able to understand. There is no need to write it as a criticism. So I hope you understood, guys. Many I have seen in the answer, they start writing simply according to Weber. No, just don't do that. What you need to do is take this point, which you have written already as the main element of positivism, criticize that point from your knowledge, from your side. Then to substantiate that only, you should be using Weber. For example, that is how you're going to use. Your answer should not be about, your main answer is critically analyze, right? Criticism. That should not be Weber. Okay, guys. So first you have to make your point. Then to substantiate that, you should be talking about Weber. There may be some areas where you can directly use also, no problem. But try to use it to substantiate your point only as much as possible. In case if you are not able to get that point or write from your side, then use it for even not for example, just according to Weber, like this you can write for Mead, symbolic interactionism, right? So talk about interactionist approach. How is it different from macro or positivism? Then most importantly, you have to talk about phenomenology. Guys, I have seen people talk about phenomenology, but without mentioning the name. At least Alfred Schutz you have to talk about. Okay, so Peter Berger, Thomas Luckman, all these names you can mention. At least Schutz you have to talk about. Then you have to talk about ethnomethodology, right? So ethnomethodology is a Parsonian and Schutzian approach combined together. Harold Garfinkel, that name has to be there. Explain this in one, guys, all these has to be one criticisms. So you cannot, because phenomenology itself can be a 10 marker. I know you will be able to write 2 paragraphs or even 250 words, but I want you to write only 10 to 12 words, just one sentence. That's it. Okay, for example, here objectivity. Phenomenologists completely ignore objectivity. Here they are focusing on theory building. So for example, ethnomethodologist is completely involved in understanding rather than theory building, right? That is how you can take each and every point and use one. And then talk about, these two are very important because these are anywhere directly there in your syllabus. You guys need to talk about Goldner, the reflexive sociology, which I have told you. There is no possibility that you can remain neutral, you can remain objective in study. You can be immersed into the study. That is a better approach. Without using your feelings and emotions, or without knowing yourself, you cannot know anything else, right? So that is the idea which is related to reflexive sociology. Also talk about, I have given an example of Anthony Giddens, structuralist. So this is how your criticism should look like. At least this much you can write, since the question is mainly focusing on critically analyze. If discuss question is what they're asking, or if it is examined, then you don't want to talk this much of criticism. Hardly 2 or 3 will be enough for you. Okay, guys. So I hope you got the structure of that particular answer, whether it is 250 mark or 150 mark. If it is 150, you have to reduce the content from here. Correct? This has to be the same. You can't do much over there. But that will come with time. When you start writing, it will automatically come, and that is the practice what you actually need. Definition, you can start with a simple definition. If you know the definition, positivism, one line of definition you can give. That where when you discuss a context, you can do that. Okay, and then in the conclusion, you have to talk about relevance. Without writing at least one point, relevance, never conclude, guys, because this is going to be full of criticism. Towards the end, you are concluding it with negative note. That is not going to be good. Either just as relevance or as your opinion, okay, or the what you understood, you can write that. Relevance, it gave though this much criticism is there, this gave initial legitimacy to the discipline. Initial positivists contributed a lot in terms of various theories. For example, Durkheim's concept of social fact, their stress on objectivity, their theories. Talk about anything which you know. I am not giving anything now here. Because I have given an answer here, you can just go through that. Okay. So positivism, whatever I have told you, in case if you have not attended my sessions, you have these PDF. Go through this. What is positivism in simple terms? Everything is mentioned. Whatever I have underlined, it has to be there in your mind. Never miss that. Okay. Critically analyze, clearly given. The contribution is written. The criticisms one by one is written. Though I have not added thinkers here, but you need to, right? I have given, right? Adorno, Peter Berger, right? Then Comte, thinkers is there. Non-positivist. Non-positivist means actually Weber, Mead, Alfred Schutz, everybody will come, right? And the conclusion is also there. So this is another answer that also you can go through. Here, just read this in case if you don't know about reflexive sociology. This can be a question. This can be a 10 marker. Why it can be a 10 marker? People will tell that it is not there in the syllabus, but it is there in the syllabus. How? The topic is positivism and its critique. Any critique to positivism, any other approach can be asked. Okay, it's not that from critique they cannot ask, right? They can, that is unlimited. The scope is unlimited from asking question. Any alternate approach to positivism can be critique to positivism. Can they ask you? Yes. You don't have any right to tell that it is not part of syllabus. Reflexive sociology, they can easily ask you, and which will be from the syllabus. So go through this, which is written here clearly. If you don't know, they are talking about methodological dualism. Okay. And then this also structuralism, and in that I have given the example of Giddens. That also, please go through that. Okay. So that's about positivism. I hope you got the structure in which you will be writing the answer. Now let's come to non-positivism. Okay, so non-positivism, mainly they can ask you separately. Guys, these are the separate questions. First, they can ask you non-positivism or critically analyze non-positivism, or they will ask you non-positivism as a critique of positivism. All these are twisted questions of the same topic. Or 10 marker, they can ask you Weber approach, that is interpretive sociology. This can be a 10 marker. Or Mead's approach, symbolic interactionism, again another 10 marker, or it can be 20 marker also. They can also ask you phenomenology separately. Okay, I'll not be discussing all these now. I'll tell you the approach. They can also ask you ethnomethodology, they can ask you reflexive sociology, they can ask you structuralism, and all those they can ask you. But this is what mainly we will be focusing on. Interpretive sociology, short note you need to prepare. You should be preparing. I have given that here. It is there here. Okay. Symbolic interactionism. I'm expecting you know that. I'm not discussing what is it. It is given in the PDF. Read that. We'll be giving you the question and we'll see how you're writing. Okay, guys. Then phenomenology, ethnomethodology. This is Alfred Schutz, Peter Berger, Thomas Luckmann, Harold Garfinkel. Okay. It's a mixed approach of Parson and Alfred Schutz. So if they're asking you non-positivism as a critique to positivism, if they're asking you like that, then how you're going to approach it? The question is non-positivism as a critique to positivism. Here they are talking about both, right? Positivism and non-positivism. Similarly, they can simply ask you non-positivism and its critique. Okay, you got the difference between two questions, but ultimately when you're writing the answer, both will come more or less the same. Or they can simply ask you non-positivist methodologies. Okay, so these are the questions they can ask you, and all these are going to be almost same because the contents are almost same. So suppose they're asking you non-positivism as a critique to positivism, what you need to write is sociology emerged, and then in the beginning sociology followed approach which is similar to natural science, which was related to positivist approach, and the main elements of positivism were this. Just the first paragraph, not too much you need to talk about that. But positivism was criticized by idealists, then talk about the main criticisms, and then alternate approach came. For example, guys, positivism is objective study of objective reality. What you study? Objective reality, right? External reality. How you study? Objectively. So objective study of objective reality. Then comes Weber. What Weber do, subject matter will change from external to internal, so subjective reality. But Weber stress on making theory and studying objectively. So that is what objective study of subjective reality. Then comes pure phenomenal non-positivist methods like phenomenology, ethnomethodology. That is subjective study of subjective reality because they are not concerned about objectivity. They are not concerned about theory. Okay. So here, what you will be talking, initially you talk about positivism because that they are asking non-positivism as a critique to positivism. Talk about positivism first. Perfect. And then you talk about the criticisms like in the beginning of 19th century, idealists like Hegel and Dilthey and all those inspired by them, alternate school have emerged and they have criticized because of these reasons, talk about the reasons, talk about few criticisms, and then talk about non-positivism, and then you talk about the elements of non-positivism. Briefly, what are the elements? Just opposite. In positivism, external reality. Here, internal aspects. In positivism, scientific methods. Here, you are not concerned about scientific methods. Positivism, quantitative data. Here, qualitative data. Positivism, theory building. Here, just understanding. Positivism, objectivity. Here, you favor subjectivity. Right? Positivism, you concerned about prediction. Here, prediction and testing and all is not possible. Okay, guys? So talk about that elements. And then various non-positivist approach also need to be mentioned, where you will be discussing Weber, Mead, and then phenomenology and ethnomethodology, right? And then you should be talking about briefly this limitation of this approach also, 1 or 2 lines, then you will be concluding. Okay, so this is what I have given to you here. what is non-positivism and everything in detail I've given here. Interpretive sociology, this is of Weber. More detailed understanding is given below this. It is an objective study of subjective reality. Why objective study? Because Weber stressed on making theories, ensuring objectivity by using methods like Verstehen, ideal types, trained investigator, causal pluralism, causal probabilism. Talk about all these things. Whatever you know depends on the space you need to mention. Yes, in this question, I have given the answer for this. Elaborate the main tenets of interpretive perspective in sociology. If that is a question, you are asking about specifically this one. But guys, first line you talk about initial approach was positivism. Then the subject matter changed with Weber, who was inspired by the idealist. Then you talk about Weber's approach. What is interpretive sociology? The subject matter have changed. It is becoming internal based on micro approach. But the way you study, it is similar to positivist, objective. So interpretive sociology by Weber is considered to have bridged the gap between positivist and non-positivist. Why? What you study related to non-positivist, internal aspect. How you study related to positivist. This much clarity if you have, then you will not face any problem, right? And then briefly you mention about, then later, inspired by this or followed by this approach, you can talk about formal school if you want. Then you can further talk about phenomenology, ethnomethodology, etc. emerged and prospered. And that helped in the development of scope of sociology and better approaches in sociology. Guys, it's all about the way you're going to write. The content remain the same, right? It is all about how you're going to write, and it's all about presence of mind. We all will be having the same content. I'm giving the same content. So what my understanding and what your understanding will be almost same, though you have studied from different teachers. But ultimately, when you're sitting in the table, we all have the same content. But it's all about how you are going to write and the presence of mind. And guys, it's all about execution. This is only one simple point which I want to tell you. It's all about the way you're going to execute, the way you're going to write and use that 3 hours. That's what matters. For that, what you need is a practice. And if you're taking prelims this year, I don't want you to spend too much of time now. Just write the answers which I'm giving you, questions which I'm giving you. Beyond that, don't put too much effort. Okay, because prelims is going to be very important for us. If you're not clearing prelims, then there is no point in doing all these exercises. We can also, what I can do is even after prelims, those who are clearing the prelims, we can have some more refresher sessions. I can do that with you. Anyway, the group will be alive and you will be in touch with me till your mains, right? So in case if you're clearing prelims, then we can have a refresher session of this, right? You can have a test series also with me. All those things we can consider later. But this, just understand and take it as a revision. What I'm telling you is, you can use this as a revision because you got that extended time. So take it as a revision, complete one round, at least paper 1, paper 2, just listen and just close your books. Maybe you can write answer, that's enough. If you're giving prelims this year, that's more important, guys. Interpretive sociology and then symbolic interactionism, Bloomer, Mead. These are the elements of symbolic interactionism. Then phenomenology, ethnomethodology, indexicality, reflexivity, now elements of non-positivism, common elements of non-positivism, emphasis on understanding, right? Not theory, scientific methods similar to positivism is not used, qualitative data, not quantitative data, no formulation of theory, favor subjectivity, values and biases will be accommodated, like what Alvin Goldner said, right? Then limitations is also given. Guys, I'll tell you and I will tell this point again and again. This material is prepared by incorporating everything from whatever I can collect. I've gone through all, and the best is what I've taken. You don't want to go through that exercise. So just stick to this. You will come to know once you read this. Just stick to it, guys. Everything, what you're gonna get from all other sources will be there in this. So if you have this, then you keep on reading the same thing. It will be printed in your mind, like that muscle memory will work then. As soon as you see that point, you know this is what I need to write. Okay, guys? Conclusion is also given. This is a direct short note, sociology as an interpretive discipline. So there you will be more focused on Weber. Okay? Just read the answer. The same content is what in a twisted form written. I've boldened the whatever is boldened. Like you can talk about Westerhan approach, guys. Whenever you get a question on Weber, not only sticking to what is there in this particular PDF, you also need to bring whatever you have learned in thinkers. For example, his approach. You are making a point that Weber's approach is an objective study of subjective reality. Substantiate it. Talk about his objective study. Give example from his studies. Give the methods that he used. Define social action, the scope of sociology. Sociology aims at understanding cause and social action in order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect, right? Wherever you can write such definitions which you have learned in thinkers, just do that. Okay, that will add value to you. Same. This is what. Same question only, guys. See, here I added the theories of social action also. So how this theory is actually added here in interpretive approach. Even Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism you can use. How he study objectively, how he's trying to study objectively, how he's talking about causal pluralism in terms of spirit and substance. Correct? Interpretive sociology, phenomenology. Just repeatedly read these contents, guys. It's going to be very good for you. I think here some repetition is there. Repeated, yes. Ethnomethodology. Yeah, this is repetition. Okay, phenomenology. If they're asking phenomenology, it can be a 10 marker. So you'll be talking about Alfred Schutz, Peter Berger, Thomas Luckman. The context you need to explain. What is the context? Positivism, their limitations, idealist, Weber, Mead, and inspired by them, phenomenologist. Okay, their characteristics, talk about their basic elements, studying internal aspects, understanding, no scientific methods, right? No theories, qualitative data. Alfred Schutz, talk about him, very important. Peter Berger, Thomas Luckman, contribution to sociology. This is what CCR, right? Contribution, criticism, conclusion is the relevance. I don't think I need to repeat the same thing again and again. The same only here. Just read that. Okay. Our next topic is value neutrality. That is also there in the syllabus. Before that, this question. Sociology as science, right? Sociology as science. See, they will ask you, can sociology be a science? Okay. Is sociology a science? Like that, they will ask you question, and that is there in your syllabus. So they will ask you. So what you guys need to do is, again, talk about emergence of sociology, right? The initial sociologist, what they wanted to do, right? So initial sociologists wanted to make it similar to natural science. Saint Simon, talk about that, even thought of social physics, which is analogous to natural science physics, right? So you will be talking about Saint Simon for sure. And then you will talk about Auguste Comte, introduced sociological positivism and wanted to make it similar to natural science, gave sociological theories. Scope is defined in terms of social statics and social dynamics. Bring about all those dimensions which you know, guys. Talk about Herbert Spencer, his organismic analogy, compared society with an organism. Talk about that. Then, obviously, you can talk about Durkheim. He stressed on considering social facts as things, shows his concern towards objectivity. He defined how sociology can be a scientific discipline, and he demonstrated how can you study a social fact in a scientific way and all those things. So these are thinkers that you need to bring in. Otherwise, the answer should look like you need to explain what is science. Guys, there are two ways in which you can understand science. Let me tell you quickly. First is that is a very good question, Vivek. Is non-positivist methodology science? Illustrate. Actually, we will be telling you these are scientific. Okay, let me explain what is science. Then you will be able to answer that question. Why? Where have? Okay, you have. I'm expecting, Vivek, you have done sociology already. Okay, so here, what was I discussing? Science. Let's try to understand science. Then you will be able to answer that question. Initially, science is understood like this: any body of knowledge which satisfy these conditions. empiricism, inductivism, right? And then explanation, theory. Yeah, you gave mains also. And you face this challenge, right? Okay, you will be able to answer now, no problem. What was your score in mains then, 2018? Sociology trapped you? Yeah. Okay, no problem. We'll do it this time. So what we are discussing, science is understood more. Yeah, empiricism, inductivism, naturalism, or universalism, right? So any body of knowledge which satisfies these empiricism, material reality, inductivism, it's a method of theory building. So this is what actually science, understanding. If this is the case, sociology can never be scientific. Then the method of phenomenology and non-positivism can never be scientific because it is not studying empirical reality. It is not inductive approach, it is deductive approach and all. But later, science is understood more in terms of method of inquiry. This is what, Vivek, you need to focus on. Method of inquiry rather than body of knowledge. So this approach is based on body of knowledge, what you study, right? This is approach based on what you study. This is based on how you study. So now science is understood more in terms of method of inquiry rather than body of knowledge. This statement is given by Karl Popper. Okay, so what this all about? If your method of inquiry, the method of studying of phenomena, if it is scientific, if it is based on logic and reason, if it is based on pure, proper understanding, then it can be considered as scientific. And even Karl Popper says there is nothing, as a problem to consider deductive approach also as a scientific approach. There is nothing contradictory with respect to scientific approach and deductive approach. Deductive approach is also a scientific approach because you are doing proper setups. So if that is the case, I'm answering your question. Just 1 minute. If that is the case, can we consider non-positivist methods as scientific? Yes, because that is also can be considered a scientific method because the method of inquiry is scientific. For example, if you talk about ethnomethodology, they use method of accounts, right? For that, you need a trained investigator, proper investigation, detailed descriptions need to be collected. So the method of inquiry is scientific. Then you can consider this as scientific. Okay, and you can quote the statement of Karl Popper also. So this, if you can, for that, what you need to do to answer that question, you need to explain what is science. For that answer also, you need to explain science. For this one that I'm discussing also, you need to explain what is science. Method of inquiry, if it is scientific, then you can consider it as science. Then can you consider sociology as science? Yes. If this is the case, can you consider sociology as science? What you study, if that is the basis of science, you cannot consider sociology as science because sociology study human beings, human emotions, human motives and everything, which is internal, which is consciousness, which cannot be objectively or quantified, right? So this is what you can, this is why you can consider sociology as science. But that is not the complete answer. You need to talk about elements of science. I'll quickly tell you guys elements of science. Inter-subject reliability. You should be knowing this. I'm expecting you know this. Then quantifiability. Scope should be defined clearly. Objectivity. Theory building. And testing. Prediction. Predictability. All these are elements of science. Now you need to tell what are the arguments in favor of sociology being science. Is there inter-subject reliability or not? Is the concept defined in sociology having the same meaning across subjects or not? Yes, you can say to an extent inter-subject reliability. Quantifiability, even Durkheim quantified extreme abstract forms of social phenomena and social institutions in terms of social facts. Objectivity, we are trying to ensure maximum possible objectivity with a lot of methods, training of investigator and all those things. Theory, we have a lot of theories. Testing, you can be done, right? Prediction, you say whatever is possible. Arguments in favor. Then you write arguments against. There are limitations in theory. There are limitations in objectivity. There are limitations in testing. There are limitations in prediction. Talk about arguments against. Now you need to conclude, right? What is the conclusion? You will be saying sociology is a science. But this is a strong point, guys. It's not similar to natural science. It's a science, not similar to natural science, but it is a science in itself. Why we can consider it as science? Because of the first condition that I've told you, the method of inquiry is scientific. So you can consider sociology as science. Perfect. And you can use one statement of Weber, which I've given in the PDF. What Weber says is, if you take natural science, it study matter, which do not have consciousness. On the other hand, sociology study human being, which is having consciousness. So when you're studying matter, which do not have consciousness, the behavior can be predicted easily in terms of cause and effect relationship, right? You boil water at 100 degrees Celsius, you know what is going to happen. You freeze water at 0 degrees Celsius, you know what is going to happen. You can predict it. That's not the case with human beings. When you're dealing with human beings, you cannot predict the behavior, as human beings have consciousness. Therefore, cause and effect relationship will be difficult to objectively ensure. But since the method of inquiry is scientific, we can call it as scientific, and it is a social science. That is going to be a conclusion. Guys, I have given everything in detail. You just need to read. It will be there in the bottom of the PDF. So I hope that question is also answered. So science is done, positivism is done, non-positivism is done. Next one is this one, value neutrality and objectivity. Let me quickly tell you what is this value neutrality and objectivity. What do you mean by value? First of all, value means these are the ideas that we carry in our mind. So tell that first. But based on which you will decide the desirability, undesirability, preferability, rejection, superiority, inferiority of anything, right? It will be formed from schools, from your family, from your society, and all those, right? We have different values. When I say patriarchal value, what does that mean? Bias towards male. That means male is considered superior, male child is considered preferable, male is considered desirable. On the other hand, female is considered inferior, female is considered rejected, undesirable. That is what patriarchal value in a patriarchal society, right? So if you having patriarchal value, you will be biased against female and biased towards male. So value will result into bias. What we need, we don't want bias, right? What do you mean by objectivity? Objectivity means freedom from bias. So you guys need to tell what the initial sociologists wanted to do. They wanted to make it similar to natural science. For that, the most important precondition is objectivity. Then you tell what is objectivity. Objectivity means freedom from personal bias. Then you tell from where okay, Vivek, thank you so much. So from where this bias will come? The bias will come from value. Then you tell what is value. Values are these, okay? And then you tell objectivity. If you need to ensure, one of the precondition is value neutrality. Guys, let me tell you one thing. Objectivity and value neutrality are not one and the same. Value neutrality is a precondition to ensure objectivity. If you remain neutral, then only you can ensure objectivity, provided there are many other things also need to be taken care, methods and proper approach and everything need to be there. Okay, so value neutrality is one of the precondition to ensure objectivity. Objectivity is your larger goal. Value neutrality will come obviously within that. Now, then you talk about various steps in the research, because whenever you talk about objectivity, which method you're talking about, inductive or deductive? You're talking about inductive approach, because in deductive approach, they are not concerned about objectivity. So in inductive approach, what are the steps? You collect data, first of all, then you interpret data, then you try to make theory and all. So in all these steps, you need to tell the examiner how the values are affected. In all these steps, collection of data, what methods you take? Interview method, for example. Will it be based on your bias, the question that you're asking? Yes. On the other hand, the other person who's replying, will there be bias? Yes. Okay, so these are examples which you need to give. So steps, how the values can be affected. Even when you're selecting the topic, can the value will be affected, selection of topic? Yes or no? Yes. But what Weber says is, value can be tolerated at least at the level of selection of topic. Whatever topic you like, you choose it. But once you decided the topic, then it should not come. When you're collecting data and everything, then value should not come. At the level of deciding the topic, value can be tolerated. Once you decided, then there should not be any value. Okay, guys. So then you also need to tell what are the steps to take to ensure value neutrality or objectivity. Talk about various methods, what the methods Durkheim gave. Talk about the methods which Weber gave, Verstehen, ideal types, causal pluralism, comparative analysis, how he used these, how he demonstrated it. Talk about Durkheim, use of statistical techniques or quantitative approach, indirect experiment, multivariate analysis. Explain social fact. So his stress on considering social facts as things itself shows his concern for objectivity. You are asked to consider some social institutions as things like physical objects. How is it going to be possible? Which shows his concern for objectivity. Talk about that. Okay. So, guys, ultimately now what I need to tell you is you have the content with you. You have good knowledge. It's all about the way you're going to present it. Now, I hope you might have got some idea with this discussion how I am going to present my answer. You don't worry about these words that I'll do separately. And once we did that, then you will come to know that there is not much difference. Actually, question is asked on a topic. Ultimately, once you start writing the answer, you need to write each and every dimension. These words will not be playing key role, but you need to know. Yeah, this is the structure you need, right? And this is what I've given to you. You need to write the more than that. You need this clarity, guys. Once you have this clarity, this will come to you automatically. I told you, no, that it has to be, come to your muscle mind. Like I'm teaching, so I know this. It should be like when you're driving in the beginning, when you start driving the car, then you will face a lot of difficulty. Then once you become an expert, then things will, you know what to do in different situations, right? Same is the case here. Once you have the good knowledge, not all what people will do, positivism, you take the topic, you study the topic, and you try to reproduce the answer. That is not the approach. Even if I am writing positivism, I'll be trying to write answers from thinkers, right? And from every other sources which is possible. That will reduce my difficulty also in learning that, guys, what is easy? This approach is easy. You can learn from different aspects and you can use it. Both need to be there, Harsh. You need to write answers, at least a few answers, especially after mains. But here you can just start writing so that you will get that touch. Interlinking thinker is more important. And guys, if you are strong in thinker, let me tell you, you'll be very good in sociology, at least in paper one. And that is my strong area. That's why you can see in all 3 papers, 3 years mains, consistently, I was so good in paper one. Paper two will fluctuate. You don't know whether it all depends on a lot of other things. Paper one, if you're strong in thinkers, and that's exactly what I'm passing on to you. The thinkers, if you're strong, you will come to know how I can use it everywhere. Even positivism, you will be able to use Marx and Durkheim. You can talk about Weber and Mead in non-positivism, right? You have studied these 4 thinkers. And any other approach, you can talk about Parson and Merton. And these are the thinkers you need to write in family. If you're studying family, you'll be talking about Durkheim, you'll be talking about Weber, you'll be talking about Marx, you'll be talking about Parson. Religion, you'll be talking about Marx theory of religion, Durkheim theory of religion. You'll be talking about Weber theory of religion, Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Parson, social control. Malinowski, social change. Do you want to study separately? No, right? Everything is done in thinkers. You just need to interconnect. Politics and society. There also you're studying Parson and Weber. Constants from some variables, some both are one and both are studied in thinkers. Everything is interlinked. Work and economic life. There is a topic. For example, organization of work in different societies. You have learned that in Marx mode of production. Different societies, ancient, feudal, capitalism, socialism, right? Industrial society, everything. Everything need to be connected with thinkers, then is going to be very, very easy. Okay, any doubts here, guys? That's it. This is what I wanted to tell you today. And tomorrow we will have a session. I'll update that in the WhatsApp group whether we'll have a session on tomorrow. Definitely, I'll give you answers, questions tomorrow. If no session tomorrow, I'll give you questions from these two. Method of inquiry is different from positivism, but method of inquiry is scientific. Deductivism is also a scientific approach. This is what the statement of Karl Popper. We don't want to say anything. We can use it from according to Karl Popper. There is no contradiction between scientific approach and deductivism. Because method of inquiry is scientific, rational. Scientific means rational, based on logic and reason, based on evidences. Then it can be considered as scientific. If you're talking about body of knowledge, then no. No, you are studying internal reality. You cannot. Okay. Any doubts? You can turn on the mic also, in case if you want to ask something. No, guys, PDFs I am preparing. I'm taking a lot of content from different sources. Even I am also reading and I'm preparing from. I told you, I'm taking from Vision. I've seen the question papers from there. I'm taking Wajiram, and then different sources. Whatever I find, I take it from there. Essential Sociology, everywhere I'm taking, so that your learning curve will be reduced. You just need to stick to this only.
Sir, can we say the method used by Weber as scientific, sir, because Western approach,
Western, not Western. Western.
Western approach and ideal type, that is not scientific, right?
Those are scientific. That is also based on some rationality, some reason. Weber is actually a proponent of rationality.
Okay.
If you need to say scientific, you can say scientific. If you want not to say scientific, it all depends on the question I'll answer. If they're asking you to prove that it is not scientific, then I'll prove that. If they're asking you to say it is scientific, then I'll prove that.
Sir, if they're asking illustrate, then we have to say both sides.
Yeah, both you can say in these ways it is scientific, but in these ways it is not scientific. For example, when you're choosing the ideal types, there are a lot of personal bias and everything which is involved, right? And Weber himself used the ideal types of some religions based on his convenience. So we can have a lot of examples to prove that there are, irrationality also in those approaches. But at the same time, we can prove that this is rational as well. That is a good thing with sociology and social science. You can manipulate the way you want if you have knowledge.
Sir, am I audible?
Tell me.
Yes. So, what exactly do the words inductivism inductivity and deductivity mean? I mean, I know they are tenets of positivism and non-positivism.
Yeah, these are something which need to be studied separately. These are one-day discussion methodology. Briefly, I'll tell you, inductivism and deductivism is a way of theory building. Inductive approach is what followed mostly in natural science. Guys, please turn off the mic. Those are not asking. Sound is coming. So inductive is not like what you do in the +2 when you go to the lab. What you do, you want to prove some theory. Here you're making theory. There you're not making theory. Some theory which is made is tested, right? So what you do, you collect data, you interpret data, then you try to prove it. That approach is what inductive approach, inductivism, right? So induce from the observable facts. Deductive approach, you have a hypothesis first and then you will try to prove that. For example, you want to study domestic violence. You make a hypothesis that domestic violence is because of alcoholism or it is because of dowry. And then you try to prove it by collecting data accordingly. So that is what deductive approach.
Yeah, thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
sir. Hello?
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, Peter Berger's statement is that like sociology is concerned with making it out of, I think positivity is a concern with us making out of sociology in science as like that some sentence. So can I write directly this sentence or I have to explain to something like
you have already explained the point and then you just need to write according to Peter Berger, the statement you can write.
Okay.
That is how. Simply randomly you can't write. No, you need to put a context and then only you need to write anything.
But sir, in criticism, directly, like according to phenomenologists, like Peter Berger said, I don't.
You can write. That way you can write. Criticism you can do that.
Okay.
But the best way is always to criticize from your side and then use thinker. That is the best way. But in case if there is a limitation of space, you will be obviously facing that limitation. Then you straight away write according to this, according to Popper, according to this, like that you can.
Okay.
It all depends on, again, there is no hard and fast rule. It all depends on your discretion. This is what I want to tell you. People mistakenly believe that this is what I need to write and then only I'll get mark. You write anything, you will get mark. But it has to be based on the situation. It should be, it should impress the examiner. It should only convey that you have the required knowledge.
Okay.
It's not that you need to write this and then that is what the case with maths and physics and electrical engineering and all. Here, that's not the case. You write anything, anyway, it should be convincing. That's the only thing. This is what I mean by this answer writing program. I want to change that myth actually.
So actually, I am following that, like reproducing the same what you are in PDF. But now I just trying to I adapt my side. And
yeah, now we are in this PDF. If you see, I have given different answers, different way also.
So okay, now I will change my approach.
Yeah. Even don't stick to my PDF and my words completely. You have to change it. You have to make it your own. But there are some keywords which I have underlined that you need to take, and then you have to make it your own. Then it will come like a, spontaneously it will come based on the situation. Guys, this is it's the way I speak to you. You should be in a position to speak like that first. Then you will be able to write also. Right?
Actually, it's very difficult, reproducing the same. Actually, it's very struggling, I think.
No need to. That is what I'm saying. No need to reproduce the same. But the fact of the matter, it's like the essence should be the same. Then reproduce in your words.